The bankers, the Goldman Sachs, and the Wall Street necessarily, but a lot of our support, as you may have read about, does come from the military. And so Carolyn Smith, who's on our staff, her husband just returned from 18 months in Afghanistan, and the plaque down there and the flag was flown from the back of his Chinook helicopter over in Afghanistan, and that's the kind of support that we're happy to have as well. Just a couple of housekeeping details first. If you had your picture taken with Dr. Paul before the dinner, we will have those pictures posted to Flickr. Give us a couple of days to get that done, but it's just flickr.com/Ron Paul, and we'll have them up there under a set for Philadelphia, so feel free to look at those. You can download it, get them printed at a drugstore or Target, that sort of thing, wherever you want to. Feel free to do what you want at that point. So give us a couple days to do that on Flickr. Dr. Paul will be sitting down afterwards outside in the hallway. If you have a book, anything you want signed, he's willing to do that. He is on a tight schedule, though, to get out. He's flying out this evening. He will be co-hosting Squawk Box on CNBC tomorrow morning. We'll be on there for 2 hours, 7 to 9 a.m. Squawk Box on CNBC. So he does, again, tight schedule. So if you do have him signing something tonight, if you can limit it to one item, that would be very much appreciated, so that he can get up to New Jersey and get ready for that taping for tomorrow. And again, as I said, the rally today was a good rally. We've been holding these all over the country. We were in California a couple weeks ago. We had over 6,000 at UCLA. We had over 8,200 at Berkeley, the belly of the beast. We were in Texas a week later, and several thousand at Texas A&M and a couple of the other UT schools. Last week we were in Rhode Island, 4,000 there, I believe. We were in Massapequa.
Wow.
We were in Pittsburgh.
Don't you feel like a rock star?
In the thousands. So again, today, another great showing, and we appreciate that support. And hopefully everybody that's showing up to these rallies is registered to vote and voting, and getting others to do the same. It's important as we keep this going. The other thing that's important to us is obviously is in order to do these rallies and keep Dr. Paul on the road is the financial support. So we appreciate what you're doing. Everybody got an envelope earlier, and if you're able to, at some point soon, whether it's in the next, tonight or in the next week or so, make another donation. It helps keep Dr. Paul on the road, keeps this campaign going, keeps ads on the air. So if you can make another donation, we appreciate it very much. If not you, hopefully you can find another liberty-minded friend, family member who can make that donation. So that's what keeps us going. We're not a campaign that goes into debt like some of the campaigns that are shut down because they're millions of dollars in debt. That's not how we operate. So whatever you can do in that front, large or small, we appreciate it, and keep spreading the message. And in my position, get a lot of phone calls from supporters, a lot of emails, meet people like you along the road. And one of the comments I hear quite frequently is that I am your biggest supporter. I am Dr. Paul's biggest supporter. So I've met 300 to 500 at least of the biggest supporters out there, happy to say. But I'll tell you that the biggest supporter that I know that I've met is his lovely wife, Carol Paul, and happy to introduce you.
Thank you. That's very nice. I really haven't had this particular job very long, but once I did it 4 nights ago at another dinner. They said, "Oh, you need to be the one to do this job." So I said, "Okay, well, if I need to get up here and speak, then I'll have to do my little housekeeping chores." Most of you have received a Ron Paul cookbook, and Ron says this is his secret weapon. And so this is the 11th edition, and we haven't had any trouble before, but this time we have 2 heirs in the cookbook. So those of you who are cooks and want to use this cookbook, I would like you to turn to page 5. At the top of the page is banana nut bread. Oh. And it's one of my favorite things to make because my kids would walk in the house and they would say, "Oh, rotten bananas, yay!" So it's very good, it always works, but it has to have a half a cup of oil added to what is there. So you might want to correct your book and add a half a cup of oil. And if you don't want to add a half a cup of oil, you could add a fourth cup of applesauce and a fourth cup of oil. How about that for being different? Okay, on page 22, there's a lady from Washington State who sent me a recipe. She's not sure if she omitted it or it was a typo, but in the Foothill House Sweet Dreams, at the bottom of the page, it must have 2 cups of flour. That would be a disaster if you're making cookies and didn't put in the flour. So those are my little housekeeping things. But then they said, well, Carol, while you're up there, why don't you just go ahead and introduce Ron and do things like that? So then Ron said, well, that's a good idea. And while you're up there, why don't you introduce Linda? So our granddaughter Linda is traveling with us. Linda is taking a semester off college because she was a semester ahead. So she'll be a senior at Texas A&M this year and doing all kinds of hard things that, you know, I couldn't begin to tackle, science and all that kind of stuff. But she's got 2 sisters who are going to be doctors. One gets her MD in May and the other one is the second year. So she's wanted to think about that this year before she made a decision on what she was going to do. And next to introduce the man of my life, who I've been married to for 55 years. He was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Went to grade school and high school there, and where he was a state champion runner. Then he went on to Gettysburg College, another good Pennsylvania school, and he ran track, he swam, and I think he even wrestled a little bit in college. And we were married. Everybody keeps saying, I invited him to my birthday at 16, and then we got married. Well, no, we didn't do it that fast. I went to Ohio U, and he went to Gettysburg, like when your parents told you things to do back then, you did them. And we waited, and we were like 21 when we got married. So it's, you know, it's all on the up and up. And you may know, Ron is a medical doctor, OBGYN. He did his medical training at McGee Women's Hospital in Pittsburgh. And then we heard about a wonderful place in Texas that really needed a doctor. And he wanted to go somewhere that needed a doctor. So we went to a little tiny town, but he was the only OB doctor in about an area of 75,000 people. But it was a wonderful beginning, and he absolutely loved being a doctor. But he'd come home every day and he'd say, when I deliver this baby, it's X number of dollars in debt, and it's just born, you know, that thing. Yeah, it is. And so finally he said, okay, I've got to get this off my chest. I'm going to run for Congress. And I said, oh. And he said, but I won't win, don't worry, I won't win. Because he said, you can't run against Santa Claus, I'm not promising him anything. So, you know, so I said, well, I think you will win. And he said, no, no. So I was right. But now I am very happy to let him have his turn at the microphone. My husband, Dr. Ron Paul.
All right.
Wasn't too long ago, we were out at a small little restaurant down where we live, and I was sitting in the driver's seat and she was in the passenger side, and I saw a woman obviously very interested in talking to us. So I immediately rolled down the window, and she didn't come. She went all the way around the other side and talked to Carol and wanted to talk about the cookbook. But it is so nice to be here tonight, and thank you very much. How many of you were at this little rally today? Anybody? Yeah! Oh, so I don't have to give a talk. This one maybe it'll be a little bit different. It'll be drier anyway.
Yeah.
That was pretty amazing that you get more than 4,000 people out. The weather isn't even not even Chamber of Commerce weather. So. But I think it really is amazing, and it really tells you that the country is in need of something different, and the country is enthusiastic about the message of liberty. For me, this is really, really rewarding because I think it is so important. So, thank you very much for participating. It's obviously a sign that things are going well. Of course, the media wouldn't give us too much credit. Like they totally ignore what we do. But you know, this week and last week, we've had these tremendous rallies and turnouts. And the media, when they do talk about us, they go, "What's he doing? What's this campaign all about?" And but they never look and seek on what's going on, because in a conventional way, if a campaign is theoretically not doing well, like some of the others over, I mean, we had 12 that started, about 12 candidates in the race, and we're down to, I don't know whether it's 2 or 3 or 2.5 or what. But when a candidate fades and the people don't accept it, what happens? There's no money. And there are no crowds. So if you look at what's happened in the last 2 months, the crowds get bigger and the money keeps coming in. So I would say our cause, the cause for promoting liberty, with an effort to win the presidency, is alive and well.
Yeah!
I think just 2 days ago, and this has not been the first time, Rasmussen had a poll. They put Romney's name up against the president, and I think it was essentially like a tie. And when they used my name, we actually won by a point.
All right. Yeah!
That is the information that you will not hear about, but for some reason or other, people seem to know what's going on, and the support continues. It continues to grow, as well as the generous support that you give for the campaign, which is a pretty good indication that this campaign has a long way to go. Nobody's going to just disappear, and we will continue our progress. The big issue today, though, in our ability to communicate has obviously been with the internet. And that is indeed under threat all the time. And I believe I mentioned today, about getting rid of the 2 bills that they proposed, and people raised a cane, and the members of Congress changed their vote, and they withdrew the bills. Now they've come up with another one, CISPA, I think it's called, and that's going to be voted on this week. And that's a very important piece of legislation. Hopefully we can generate enough information to our representatives to try to beat that, because the opposition to what we're doing know exactly how important the internet is, and they're really trapped. The internet is essentially an ability for us to get the truth out. Governments that want to remain big and benefit special interests, they're not looking for the truth. They want secrecy, and that is why the biggest boondoggle in this country is an organization that you're very familiar with. It's called the Federal Reserve.
Boo!
And this is the reason, of course, we don't want them to operate in secrecy. We want total openness, and this is why we have to get that audit of the Federal Reserve. The Fed will come. I'd like it to be appropriate after on the 100th anniversary, that is next year, that we literally end the Fed on that one. That 100 years is plenty of time. But in that area, I would say we've had tremendous success, because I myself was not optimistic enough to believe that we would get this much attention on the monetary system. But it is an issue in this campaign. Even though they like to try to avoid it, it is an issue. We have Greenspan on the defensive, that he has to hold press conferences to try to explain himself. Believe me, things are quite different. 4 or 5 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it. We didn't get the audit that we had passed in the House, but we got a partial audit, and we've learned more. We've learned how much total money that they dealt with. And it was approximately $15 trillion. We know now that about half of it went to the foreign banks, foreign central banks and governments overseas, and that they're prepared to do it again. The debt crisis is still major. I think we're at the really early stages of this problem. So they're prepared to do this, and of course they want to do it in secrecy. But there were a couple bills, a couple lawsuits filed, and the lawsuits have been helpful. We got even more information from the lawsuits. And just recently, Dylan Radican actually filed a suit, and that station filed a suit. And the Federal Reserve, under the Freedom of Information Act, responded, and they got, of course, a huge stack, maybe thousands of pages. But I was told, I haven't seen the work, but they said about 60 or 70% of it was redacted, just black lines. That's what they sent them. So there's no intention for them to have openness in government. Like I mentioned today, the purpose of government ought to be to protect our privacy, and the response that we have to enforce the Constitution means that government ought to be open. They should never be able to operate in secrecy. So those are the goals that we have.
Yes.
We have other good news going on in the organization. All the details I don't know, but but we've had good results in some of the states, like in Iowa. It looks like we could. Wouldn't it be ironic if we actually win Ohio? We'd be the third and final winner for Iowa.
Yeah.
Of course, in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, we're doing very well. I think we already have half of the total delegates, but there's still some more to be assigned, and that will, unfortunately, these will be more political and party structure. But when it came up for the votes, we can count the votes and know where they are. We do quite well. And so Alaska, we didn't do so well, but we haven't been totally closed out in Alaska. The campaign is still fighting to get the door open again so that we can. Right now, they said nobody other than Romney supporters can go to the state convention. So that is likely to be changed. Missouri, we've done pretty well. In Maine, Maine, quite frankly, I think we really won Maine.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
They've been able to make sure that they can keep saying, you haven't won a single state, you haven't won a single state. And, of course, there's straw votes, and they can manipulate those votes. At the same time, the bottom line are delegates, and I think people will be surprised in another month or two. It's going to take up till June or so to really go through all the state meetings, the committee meetings, and find out just who got the delegates. So in many ways that's working, but in the other light, other than politically, the success is even more magnificent because there's been a whole generation of young people who have been awakened, and they know that they cannot maintain the status quo. And so this is not going to go away. Of course, we're going to work hard, and sometimes we can surprise ourselves and have fantastic victories. I tell you what, the revolution is not going away. It is going
No way.
I talked today about the stages in this particular revolution. It's been going on for 30 years. The first stage is an intellectual revolution to document philosophically what the beliefs should be and are. But the founders knew that. Before the revolution against the British, the founders were very well informed about the principles of liberty, better than any other small group of individuals. And then the political action came later, and for them it was a violent revolution. But in our case, I think the work has been done, and it's spreading, and people are reading and studying. They know Austrian economics. They understand the Fed, and believe me, where I'm very impressed is with us winning over so many in the last 4 years on the foreign policy. People are coming around on that. We have been accused too often about, you know, if you believed in non-intervention, that meant you were an isolationist and you didn't care about the troops and you were un-American and you weren't patriotic. Well, then, I wonder why the troops support us then. Why is that so?
Yeah.
That to me makes me feel good. They often say that, you know, that if we don't, you know, change our ways, and we do know if we do not change our ways on foreign policy, this debt crisis will finally engulf us. And I think that's what we're facing. I think that's what young people are recognizing. And the crowds now that we're getting out are much more diverse than at the beginning. Now people are coming together because, as I have said so many times, I am convinced that if you truly understand the principle of liberty, it will bring people together. People with different personal viewpoints, different habits, and that's the only way it can work. Today I was asked by one of the commentators, and he said, what are you going to do to bring the party together, and how are you going to unify the party, and why don't you endorse all this stuff? That's not my purpose, to unify the Republican Party and stop it from breaking up. I'm trying to stop the country from breaking up.
Yeah, yeah.
That really is what's happening today. It's very, very divisive. The battles and the fight and the arguments are very real. Even though they're not philosophic, it's over power. It's who's going to have the power and who's going to control the wealth. But more and more people now realize there's no real wealth and there's no real value to the currency, and we're not producing much, and we're fighting endless wars. And I think, if not consciously, subconsciously, I think most Americans realize there's something very seriously wrong. I think we're facing something probably more critical than in our history, and it is equivalent to the need to overthrow the British. Yes, we've had depression, we've had wars, World War I and World War II, and endless wars. But I think structurally there's something different. And I don't believe it's because we have bad policies in Washington. I think there's something happened to the American people. And I am sure that the founders were on the right track when they said, you know, this system that we're giving the people, it will not be viable, and freedom doesn't work unless it's a moral people. And when people become more anxious to see how they can live off somebody else, and see how they can tell people what to do, and see how they believe their arrogance tells them how to run the economy, and see how we can tell other people how to live, that is embarking on an immoral system of government. And that is what has failed. So the people have to change. And that is where I believe we're making the progress. Washington is the last place where they discover the people's attitudes have changed. And when we look at getting enough signatures to pass an audit bill on the Fed, that's not the final solution, but that's an achievement. The fact that we have removed some bills from the House floor because they overstepped their bounds and encroachment on the internet, those are achievements. So the system still can work, but it requires waking up a lot of people, or energizing those who are awake. We know we don't have to wait for that moment when 51% agree with us. Well, we need to get the attention of the 51% to bring them along with us. And we so often talk about an irate, tireless minority, as Samuel Adams talked about. And we have that, but it's growing. It's not small anymore. And all I can do is tell you, going around the country, how many brush fires of liberty are being lit in the minds of men. It's happening all the time. The destruction of a currency is nothing new. It's been going on for thousands of years. Governments always want control. They always want monopoly control over the money. And most of the time, if they develop a fiat currency, or maybe you could say all the time, a fiat currency can only be held together by a dictator, by force, by legal tender laws. But the various countries that we know about, whether it's Germany or Zimbabwe or Central America, how many times Mexico has destroyed their currency. Currencies go down in value steadily. There's a transfer of wealth from the middle class to the wealthy, but the end stages go rapidly. It's when the confidence finally disappears and people panic out of the money. You say, well, it doesn't seem like we're very close now because they're still taking our dollars overseas. I mean, they're still buying our bonds. Interest rates are still low. But when the time comes, since the foundation is gone, I believe someday we're going to wake up and find out that there's some incident around the world. It might be the foolish notion that the world would be better off if our government, along with others, invaded or attacked or started bombing Iran and pushed oil prices up to $200 a barrel. Something like that will happen. And since the foundation is gone, that means it can precipitate a major crisis. I think that is our greatest threat right now to our liberties. Our liberties are being systematically undermined, but the crisis will come when there's economic chaos. And this is why I'm very concerned about the undermining of our personal civil liberties, whether it's National Defense Authorization Act, the Patriot Act, the ability to have strip searches without search warrants, without probable cause. Anybody that is arrested, that you can be a suspect as being a participant in the global war on terrorism merely because you might have associated yourself on the internet with web pages or whatever. Those are the great dangers. And I'm concerned about this because a lot of that abuse has been around for a long time, but now they're pushing out in the open and they say, this is the law of the land, this is what we do, we've changed the law permits us to do that. Before it was in secret because they knew it was wrong. But now they're saying, oh, we have a right to assassinate an American citizen. And yes, the people who know about this campaign are really disturbed and they are speaking out and we hear it. But we still have a long way to go to change the hearts and minds of a lot more people. But this campaign has obviously two goals: to do everything possible to win, but also to understand exactly what we're doing. We have to understand that it is an intellectual, it is a movement, it's not going to go away. So the election is important. And the more we get, winning is great. The more delegates we get, the better it is. But the continuation of what we're doing is key. And I do not believe there are any sunshine soldiers and patriots in our group. I think people are going to stay around. People are going to stay around and they're going to persist and continue this fight. And I know you're involved very much and very supportive. I want to thank you for that very much because although I get a lot of credit and I get a lot of thanks for helping and encouraging everybody, actually you encourage me a whole lot because if I was talking to empty audiences and no money came in, that is an endorsement. It's a powerful message. Just because they ignore us, believe me, we will not go away. Yeah. Thank you very much.
The registration table where you checked in at the back of the room for those tours, that's where Carol and Dr. Paul will be signing. So if you'd like,
thank you so much.
Make your way back through there now. But as we're on a little bit of a tight schedule, if you can limit it to just one piece per person. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks again. Hey, yeah, thanks so much for all my questions.